Welcome to Running for Real, a global community with a shared love and curiosity for running. Together we reconnect with the reasons why we love to run and discover ways it helps us become better people. Whether it's the quiet moments of a morning run while the rest of the world still sleeps, or befriending the strangers next to you at the start line of a race, we are here to connect with others who see running as the common thread that weaves our lives together. Come join me, Tina Muir, as I talk with people from all walks of life, united by a love of running. Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 436 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I'm excited that you are here. And I have to say, these every other week episodes are giving me the time and the space to be able to focus on something we'll be telling you about very soon. I know I keep tempting you with it. We are very, very excited for what we're launching, and we will have a huge opportunity for you. So if you are not already on our email list, you will not want to miss this opportunity. Let's just say this is something that is very in demand, that would be very desired, and you could have the opportunity to win it. Or win one of 5, shall I say. So I would encourage you to go to runningforreal.com if you have not already. Sign up for the newsletter. That is the best place you are going to find out first. And yeah, thank you so much for going to do that, for your reading. Those of you that join every week, I love hearing your feedback. Now, today, I am very excited to have a dear friend of mine and someone who, if you appreciate my style, I suppose, of environmentalism, you are going to love her. And this episode was very needed for me. You were going to hear a bit of a different side of me. Before we started recording, I actually said to her, I'm having one of those days. I was really struggling to stay positive, to believe in what I'm doing, to continue on with what I was doing. And she was the ideal person for me to speak to. And I hope you can come back to this episode on days that you are struggling with kind of hope and optimism for the future. So today I am very excited to welcome my friend Lauren Bash to the show. Lauren is a climate activist, an optimist, a storyteller, and she has the best content out there. I admire her content so much. And if you don't already follow her online, I will put a link in the show notes. Go get yourself her social media handle because she is a great person to follow to feel hope. So this episode's a little more raw and vulnerable than usual, but I think you're going to enjoy it. And as I said, have it as one to come back to. So let's hear from one of our sponsors, then check in with Lauren Bash. Friends, the days are getting longer. I am so excited that we are coming into spring. You can just feel it in the air. And that means that when I stumble down the stairs groggily to go get my AG1, I drink it first thing in the morning. I'm not standing there in the darkness, and I love that. It helps me to say goodbye to that grogginess and fully embrace the brighter morning. AG1 has such a great taste that sets the tone for a longer, productive, and energized day for me. Unlike other supplements that come and go, AG1 is a habit that actually sticks. I've been doing it for 5 years now because you can feel the difference. I have noticed that I have more energy. I feel like my body is functioning better. I really do notice it when I miss or forget to take it on a few days of a trip. When it's gone from my regimen for more than about 5 days, I really start to notice the difference. And that is why I've been using it for 5 years. So when it comes to my health, I want something I can trust. And that's why I chose AG1. With science-backed ingredients and real benefits that I can feel, AG1 makes it easy to support overall wellness every day. And that's why I've been partnering with them for 6 years now. And AG1 is offering new subscribers a free $76 gift when you sign up. You'll get a welcome kit, a bottle of D3K2, and 5 free travel packs with your first box. So make sure you check out drinkag1.com/Tina to get this offer. That's drinkag1.com/Tina to start your new year on a healthier note. Lauren, my friend, welcome to the Running for Real podcast. I'm excited that you are here.
I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me. And I Well, first, have you been on a running podcast before?
No, I feel like I still have imposter syndrome when I say that I'm a runner.
Really? Even now?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So for listeners, Lauren did her first marathon at New York, which you've
That was
kind
my
of ruined
third.
yourself for. Oh, it was your third marathon?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've done LA twice, but that was my first global or world major. Yeah.
Well, I mean, LA's still pretty big, but yes, I hope you know that you've peaked now in terms of marathons. So there's
I know you can never do. I don't think I could ever do LA ever again after you've done New York.
Yes, it is. It is definitely a special one. And oh yeah, let's begin with a little bit about New York. So that was your third marathon, your first major, your first, like, as you said, global marathon there. What are some of the words that come to mind now when you reflect back on that in terms of that race?
The thing I kept telling people afterwards was the amount of folks that are there cheering on, spectators, makes you feel invincible, like you could do anything. And it was the Sunday before the election. And I remember just thinking, like, we can do this, we can do anything. And our spirits were so high. And I remember just having so much faith in humanity after seeing thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands of people showing up to cheer for strangers,
Yep.
And I was like, wow, I'm doing this and I've trained to be here and I enjoy running. But if we had this same type of hype and encouragement and love, like, you could do anything. It makes you feel like you could do anything,
Truly. And yes, it was, I forgot about that piece of how nice it was to, for a few days, be able to kind of like pause the kind of looming fear we had in our hearts and just focus on that good energy, that good vibe, and make the most of it. And yes, it I've always said that I truly believe that it's one of the most powerful feelings in the world when you lock eyes with a stranger when you're in a marathon and they're cheering for you and they don't know you, they're never going to see you again, they couldn't pick you out in a lineup, but in that moment they believe in you. And it's one of the most powerful, beautiful examples of humanity that we could possibly come across. Did you have a few of those in the race?
I saw folks putting their names on their jerseys at the starting tent. And they had like iron-on stickers. And I was like, I wonder why they're doing that. They're putting their name on it. Like, your people know who you are. Why would you put your name on your shirt? And I decided not to do it. I guess LA doesn't have, there's a lot of spectators, but not like New York. And then I saw strangers cheering you because they knew your name on your bib or on your shirt. And I was like, oh, I get it now. People are cheering for you because you have your name on your shirt. And so at one point, I didn't realize this, but I was running next to a girl named Lauren, and she had Lauren on her shirt. And so people, for probably like 2 miles, people were saying, go Lauren, go Lauren. I was like, wow, we are the Laurens and we've got this. And I was like, this is so special. And hearing your name specifically in the cheers and in the chants, I'm like, that is, makes you feel like you could do anything.
That is so true. Although I actually choose time and again not to put my name, because I feel then you don't know who is actually your people, because it can be quite hard to find your people. Even if they say they're like somewhere between mile 12 and 13, it can still be quite tough to spot them. And so that's why I've never chosen to put my name on it, because then what if I miss them? Because it's just another person shouting my name. So I go back and forth on that, but I know a lot of people do love it. So so I want to talk about what running means to you in a little bit. I wanted to start off there with New York, because we are a running podcast primarily, but we have had many, many conversations, and it weaves in the topic of environmentalism, being an environmental activist that comes into this podcast quite a lot. And this one today is going to be a little bit different, because I said to you before we started recording that today for me is a rough one. Today, I've actually felt since the beginning of the year that I was the one holding the weight. I was the one that was able to hold the space. And especially in the days following the inauguration, I was actually able to kind of be the one for people to lean on. And today, for me, I feel like all of that just left. And so we talked before about whether we should go ahead with this, but we decided it was, you gave me the freedom, the space to back out. But I think actually this is a very good time to have a podcast because everyone feels that sense of despair and being lost and, unsure of whether you matter at some point. So this can be a good place for people to come when they are feeling that way. Now, that's how I'm feeling right now. However, you have kind of come at this the other way and you've had a rough few months, but you're actually feeling pretty good right now. So tell us a bit about, where your mental space is at right now and what it was that was able to get you around that corner to get there.
Well, first, I acknowledge you for being the rock for people after the inauguration, because that is a tough role to play. I know a lot of people just kind of wanted to disassociate and just ignore the headlines for a bit, because a lot of it was fear tactics too, and I think it almost caused more harm than good sometimes if you're just reading all of the headlines. Anyways, so absolutely. I acknowledge you for being that person, because we all needed a Tina in our life that week. Yeah. And I mean, I'm from LA. I still live in LA, and the fires. This was the first fire. I remember seeing a tweet or a meme that said, everyone in LA knows someone who lost everything. And I've experienced a fair share of fires living in LA. And as I've gotten older, they got more frequent and more intense. So literally watching the climate crisis on our front doorstep. And while we didn't have to evacuate, we live in a pretty central part of the city, a very urban part, not necessarily near the mountains. The air quality was so bad for 2 weeks, you couldn't go outside. And I think a lot of people compared it to COVID, where it was almost this, you're stuck inside, you cannot go outside, and what that does for our mental health too, especially as runners. And then, the inauguration was 2 weeks after the fires, and the fires were still raging during the inauguration. So it was just a really, really dark time. And I remember, it's so wild how we apply so much pressure to each other, especially in digital spaces. And people are so quick to look right and left, why aren't you saying anything? And why aren't you speaking up? And why aren't you doing this? And I remember people saying that to folks in the climate space in LA. And I was like, y'all, we are literally putting out fires. We are putting out fire, and everyone plays a different role. But this mobilization to stop this new administration or do whatever we can to stop the swearing in of the new cabinet members. I was like, wait, this feels like so much pressure when we're literally sourcing donations to give to people whose homes have burnt down. So that was an odd pressure too. And then obviously we all have it, the guilt and shame of I should be doing more. There's more I should do. These are the consequences, and I should be giving everything to this. And then how do you go to bed at night knowing that, tens of thousands of acres of your hometown have burnt down, and the impact on wildlife and the impact on families and our immigrant population too, who won't qualify for things like FEMA. Anyway. So yeah, I was definitely in a similar situation of what's the point? What are we doing? We knew it was going to get bad, but we didn't know it was going to get this bad this fast. And if this is how it is coming off of a liberal presidency, what are 4 years of rapid new oil and drilling permits going to do to global temperatures and ecological collapse, So.
Yeah. Okay. So you are known within the climate community, but just, online in general, as being an optimist, as being someone that people look to kind of see the good in a situation, to share stories of positivity and kind of that mindset of just the realness and the vulnerability and the openness that you share is very engaging. And you have this, it's even in the title of your bio of saying optimist. Over the past few months, how did you reconcile with that when I'm assuming at times it didn't feel like you felt like an optimist?
I've been reading Well, let me backtrack. Have you ever done like a values exercise when you find out what
Not
your
in a
top
while, but
five?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like you put out all the words. I think Brene Brown has like an activity you can do too. I remember doing it in a leadership class in college and then a couple times since, like in a corporate setting and then in like a coaching setting. And one that kept showing up was responsibility. Even at like 21 years old in college, responsibility showed up. And it's funny because I feel like if you ask my family what that manifests as, it would be bossy. Like Lauren is the bossy one in the family. You know? But I feel like I have a deep desire and value to be like duty, to like have duty. What are my duties and how can I contribute? And I'm reading, have you read What If We Get It Right? Ayana's new book.
About 2/3 of the way through.
Oh my God. I just finished it. And when you get into the chapter about hope, it's the last one. And she's so good.
It's been hard to keep going the last few weeks because there's so many things where I'm like, nope, that's just not going to happen. Nope. You know, like they're talking about if we can do this next. And you're like, well, we've gone back 12 steps. Yes. So, Kari, keep going.
I completely hear you. I started reading it pre-election. I'm a slow reader, and I was reading it pre-election. I was like, this is amazing. Yeah, it's like a textbook. This is what I have to remind myself. You read fiction for fun, and you know this stuff as like you're going back to school. This is my textbook. So yeah, I hear you. I'm reading this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's talking about Inflation Reduction Act and Paris Agreement, and all of these amazing programs that were created in the past 4 years that are now just going to be gutted. I completely hear you. However, hope is something that's like so much bigger than any political party. And she talks about, I'm not hopeful. And people always want to say, what gives you hope? And she goes, I'm realizing that that's actually the question is, what can you give me? What can you tell me that will give me hope? Because I don't have hope. So what can you tell me? And I'm like, oof. And she gets into the difference between hope and joy. And in it, it's so good, Tina. I'm like, I think this will be my statement for the year. But she says something along the lines, and I wish I had it in front of me, something along the lines of, I've been inspired by my parents that I have the responsibility to try, even if there's no guaranteed success, because I have a simple and deep desire to be useful. And I was like, bingo. That's it. And that's not even about optimism or joy. That's just about like, I have a responsibility and a duty to try. And because I want to be useful, like in this short time I'm here, I want to be, I used to say this all the time in my journal entries. Like I want my head to hit the pillow and feel like I was used up to the fullest. Like I gave everything I had and I just like wrung it out. I was used up to the fullest. And that is an indicator of a good day. Like I gave it, not like productivity or outputs, but like I gave love and care and nurturing and time and energy and like meaningful work on things that I think make an impact. But anyway, so I think that that's actually that's a pivot I had to answer your question about how do you remain optimistic in times of crisis. A realization I had at the beginning of last year was I want everything I create into this container online to have a call to action of some sort at the end, even if it's something as simple as like making a plant-based recipe where it's like, and maybe you can consider participating in Meatless Mondays. And then it like offers an invitation for folks to learn more, obviously with things that are like more climate action dense, where there's action alerts or petitions or asking you to call your representatives. There's like a bit more structure. Yeah. But I always want my content or my work to invite folks to keep going, where it's not like that was it and now what? It's kind of like maybe you ask now what, and then you watch something I've created and you're like, oh, that's what. And then that keeps you going, you know?
Mm-hmm. So you said there about, wanting to be, used up, ringed out of like in fulfilling ways. How do you detach that yourself from productivity or kind of justifying in your mind, or kind of getting into the rat race, getting onto the hamster wheel, when you could argue with yourself and say, well, I am technically doing that, but it's through emails. versus the things that, as you said, pour into your community and the people around you.
Yeah. I worked in the corporate world for 7 years after college before creating Relearn and making this my job. And I was like it's so slimy how we get young people just like hooked on productivity. However, I think Gen Z is kind of breaking that. They have like really strong boundaries around saying no. Like, if you're not going to pay me to do that, then no, I'm not going to do it. And I'm going to do just enough that you're asking me to do. There's like the people pleasing, overachieving thing that millennials got, like skipped this next generation. And I'm so jealous because we would like sell our souls to these corporate giants and lose complete sense of self, you know, to like worship the holy grail of this corporation. Anyway, so I did that. And so I think it's been like a relearning of how do you still contribute without it being like contributing to corporate success, you know? I think the answer though, like pouring into community and things like that, I think it has been prioritizing community as like part of my day. And actually this is about running, is like my run club is probably the most consistent community that I'm part of. Like I love my climate community and I, you know, volunteer with an organization as a member of like our executive team. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of like admin work. It's the unglamorous behind the scenes, like communications and, I don't know, infographic building work, you know?
Yep.
But showing up to Run Club when it's so much more than a run club, you know, this is like a women empowerment support, like social, racial, gender justice group. It's so beautiful. Showing up consistently there, I think I know I contributed because I was present for people who needed me in conversations that mattered, you know, or perhaps like I felt like they were there for me in a time that was really hard and I'm feeling really relieved and really supported, you know?
So yeah, let's talk about your run club. I actually got to meet the founder a few weeks ago, which was amazing, Mariah. Tell us, a bit about your run club and why it means so much to you. You just said a little bit there, but go a bit deeper.
Since we have time, I have to tell you the whole story. So I was not an athlete growing up. I was like a theater kid and I went to film school. So that like makes a lot of sense when you watch my content now. You're like, oh, I get that part of her. But I didn't start running until 2016. I mean, my then boyfriend, now husband, is just like an insane runner. I always say like he was running out of the womb. I'm pretty sure his mom was running like 2 days before she delivered him. So that's in their blood. All the turkey trots, you know? So,
you've joined one of those families.
Yes. So I was obviously very inspired by him and he just made running look so fun and so easy. And I've always said too, like if we applied the same marathon model or race model to other goals we have in life, because Americans get it. Like how many Americans run a race, 5K, 10K, half on their New Year's resolution? So many people do it because we understand the process. Even if you're not a runner, you understand the process. Like I'm going to get on a training plan. I'm going to sign up for a race. I'm going to like run with other people potentially. I'm going to get the shoes. And then I have the day. I have the big day that I do it. I'm like, oh my gosh, if we applied the same goal setting to anything else we want in life, boom. And accountability and like a timeline and equipment or like supportive things that we need to make it happen, teamwork and collaboration and community. Oh my God, we would be like unstoppable. So anyways, I started running in 2016. I like reluctantly signed up for my first half. But also for me, I was like, it's not for you, Brooks. It's for me. I'm going to go do it. And I couldn't run a mile, Tina. I could not run 1 mile without stopping. And it took me like 13, 14 minutes. And it was really hard for me. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And I downloaded one of like the Runner's World couch to half marathon training plans. And I was heel striking. And I'm pretty sure I ran a Nikes that I had for like 6 years. You know, like I was so unprepared, but young, right? At 2016, I was 24 years old, just on top of the world. So I did it and I ran it in my hometown and I felt like a rock star. I was like, this is amazing. This feels so good. And then I ran my first full marathon 2 years after because I turned 26. And my best friends and I were like, we're going to run 26 miles for our 26th year. and we did it, and it was awesome. It was the LA Marathon. So it was like a homecoming thing, running past all like the big sightseeing things you would go see on like a tour. Anyway, so that was like running. I could run. I had run a marathon, I ran a half. I was like, okay, I could run. And then in 2022, my dad passed away, and I was like running pretty consistently by then. But we had just moved back to LA, and I don't know, I would run alone and I would run here and there, but running was definitely helping with the grieving process. Just like it was alone time. My dad passed from heart issues, and I love when I feel my heart rate increase, because I feel like I feel him in my heart, and I have this like sweet little spiritual experience with him. But I like wasn't running with other people, and the friends who I was running with weren't necessarily running anymore. So I was running alone, and I had gone to like a few different run clubs, but just like weren't vibing with them. The run scene in LA can be very sceney,
Yes. Yes.
And I remember telling Brooks, I was like, oh, I had signed up for the LA Marathon again. I said, I want to feel like myself. I'm going to do something. I know how good this feels, and I know how good it is for me. So I want to sign up for a marathon and do something good for myself to make myself proud, make dad proud, and just like really start feeling like myself again. But I want to find some women to run with, because these like co-ed run clubs are not it. Men, like Brooks, you're too fast. Like I don't enjoy running with men.
Uh-huh.
And so Brooks goes to our local track. It's at like a community college. And he's doing drills on the stadiums, like stairs. And he sees a group of women running on the track. And he's like, what is going on? These girls are doing track drills. What is going on? And he's kind of watching them, and he's doing his thing. And so courageously, he goes up to this group of 20 women and is like, hey, what's going on here? And they're looking at him like, what? And one was like, we're Girl Gang Crazy. We're a women's run club. We're all training for the LA Marathon together. And he goes, this is amazing. My wife's actually looking for some women to run with. Could I introduce her to y'all? And they're like, of course, have her Instagram message us. That's awesome. And so I DM'd them and was like, hey, I think my husband met y'all tonight. Can I come run with you? I'm also training for LA Marathon. They said, yep, long run, 14 miles on Saturday. Show up. I was like, okay. And showed up. And like, as women are, we're just the most welcoming, warming, like, especially too, because it's truly an inclusive run club where it's not only about pace and, racing or anything. It's just about community and being together. And we've got sexy pace ladies who run like however fast, however slow they want. And then you've got girls who are running like, 3-hour marathons. So it's beautiful. The true range and diversity of this group is so beautiful. And so I found a couple girls the first day who are still my dear friends who were at my birthday on Saturday. And we all trained for the LA Marathon together. And I was like, wow, this is such an answered prayer. All I wanted was to find some women. And now these are like some of my best friends. So it's the best. So Brooks always reminds me too. He's like, don't forget that I found them. Like, I introduced you to Girl Gang Crazy.
Friends, my Achilles recovery has been so much longer than I could have anticipated, but I am now reaching the point where I'm starting to enter races. I'm excited to have lots of things on the agenda, from half marathons. I do have a marathon in mind, and something potentially beyond a marathon. I definitely want to do something beyond a marathon this year. We will be updating on what that is. But now I'm at that point, I'm so excited that I can get back to my precision gels. The PF30 gels are this practical, efficient way to get 30 grams of carbs into your system fast. For many years, I was under fueling during my races. Now that is not possible with the way precision makes it so easy. The gels have a mild, neutral flavor. So it doesn't give you this flavor fatigue. It doesn't kind of taste too sickly. It stops stickiness in your mouth, and it minimizes the need to wash it down with fluid. So it works perfectly. It goes down nicely. I love enjoying it on my runs, and will be soon in my races. And I pair it with drinking the precision electrolytes. I use the pH 1000, but they do have a free fuel and hydration calculator that you can figure out exactly what you need. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes. Now, as a friend of mine, you can get yourself 15% off at precisionhydration.com by using code Tina Sent Me. Go get yourself some of those gels. If you want to change it up, go get yourself some mint and lemon chews. I also love those very much. And remember to use code Tina Sent Me to get yourself 15% off. From your, you're very immersed in your community in LA in many different ways. What is it about running with these women that has deepened that bond? Like, people talk about how running next to someone is like sharing secrets with the wind, because you're not looking at each other. So there's not that pressure to kind of feel uncomfortable. You can say more than you would. What do you find it to be when you are with your, Girl Gang crazy running friends versus your other community friends?
Yeah. I think, well, two things. Acknowledging Mariah too, and I love that you got to meet her. Was it in Louisville?
Yeah.
She was just there? Yes, I heard she was just there. I think because the way that she has established this as so much more than a run club, this is like truly an anti-racist, racial, gender justice organization. And then some of the activities that we participate together will be like marathon training activities, but it's so much more than that. And her too is like, she created Girl Gang Crazy because there was not representation of women in color in running and in sports, and where women of color could feel safe running outside. And even as women, like running alone outside. And so she created this to be a safe space, and it has erupted, Tina. Like the first year we all did LA Marathon together was 2023, and it was 30 of us. And now I think this WhatsApp chat has like over 500 ladies in this group chat who show up, like some train for the marathon together, some just show up for like a Tuesday night run. But it's so beautiful, like truly about sisterhood. It's the best. And I think, and I'm sure you feel this way too, especially being a parent, is as we get older, it's just like tougher to see friends. And that was something that I was having a really hard time with getting older. I'm like, I feel like I have to schedule coffee dates with my friends as we were all not roommates anymore, like perhaps living with our partners or getting married or living alone. I was like, wow, I feel like I have to schedule coffee with you. Whereas before I was literally having breakfast with you every day for like 6 years, And so I think there's something too about sustaining friendships it's so much easier to sustain friendships with people when you have the same hobby and you're doing the activity together several times a week. So I've always joked, I'm like, the biggest blessing about Girl Gang Crazy is that it's social hour and run and it's exercise together, because we're working out, but we're also seeing our friends. So I like filling two cups simultaneously,
Yeah, no, it is really powerful in that way of, as you said, you're kind of like checking something off your to-do list, as in getting your exercise, getting outside. But it doesn't feel that way because you are, filling up your cup, connecting, and moving outside, which should never be a to-do list item. It just kind of is, with the way that we have, learned to live our lives today. And so I always love hearing that with people joining run groups. And it is always that reminder for all of us listening to take that extra effort to go meet up with a group, even if it is a 15 to 30 minute, trip away. Sometimes if you can do that once a week, that is meaningful. And yes, you can run from home the other days if that is easiest, but it really is worth the effort to get with people that you vibe with and gel with and can fill up your cup in other ways, as well as getting your training in. So thank you for sharing that. So yeah, we mentioned, I said at the beginning about how you had been feeling, you are now kind of like have turned a corner for now. We obviously have ups and down days in terms of your motivation, your approach and mindset towards the world. And you did say that, like, moving maybe away from that word optimist and moving towards more what Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson was talking about. And I'll put a link in the show notes for people to go read that book. What was it about your, birthday is obviously a great time to celebrate, what you've done over the past year, where you're at. But what was it going into that further that really helped you to get a different approach towards, the way you're going to spend 2025?
I feel like a lot of Dr. Ayanna talks a lot about this too. I think a lot of the solutions giving the hand were dealt now. where like the federal government is just going to be like unhinged and unregulated and so reckless. And the only thing we can do is like organize hyper locally. And because of centuries of colonization of white supremacy, we've become so individualized and disconnected from each other. And like that, the reconnecting of that, and call it what you want, like mutual aid, collective care, community organizing, is like truly the only way that we can be resilient or resistant to all of these things that are perhaps coming our way. So I think, something as small as a birthday party, however, it was girls from Run Club, and then a lot of folks from the climate community, whether it be Surfrider Foundation, which is where I volunteer, or other climate communicators and creators, or Awe, who I created Nature's Pace, the running climate activism program with, was here. And my family and my lifetime friends and college friends were all here. And I'm like, this is it. This is how it starts. And seeing people who hadn't met before talk about ideas or wanting to like host surf camps together for kids who don't necessarily live by the beach. I'm like watching all these conversations happen. I go, wow, this is kind of the environment that this community building and community organizing starts in, is just bringing passionate, value driven people together to like, granted, a birthday party is very casual and it's not like we're like strategizing, but perhaps it created like some sparks for people to connect and start connecting the dots. And so I think that that's what gives me a lot of hope too, is seeing all of these amazing people in one place who are all building such beautiful things. Like I remember seeing a quote that I remember seeing it after the election. And then I believe the poet or author had reshared it during the fires. And it said, it's Nikita Gill wrote it. And it says, everything is on fire. And yet everyone I love is building beautiful things and trying to make life worth living. And while I don't believe in everything, I believe in that. And I thought that was so perfect. Like the two truths can be true simultaneously. Like everything can be on fire and this is what we can be facing. And look at all of these things that these people are building,
That is so true. And just also you can see that in nature itself. It's, well, for some reason it's making me think of, okay, so I shared about this in when I wrote my book with Zoe Rome, Becoming a Sustainable Runner. I wrote about how I had, when I was reading to my daughter when she was one, my oldest, I remember coming across a Berenstain Bears book, which was my husband's. I don't know if you read those books as a child.
Of course, yes.
I mean, we didn't have them in England, but there's a lot of them in my house, so clearly it was a thing. And there was one called Don't Pollute the Earth. And in it, the bears it talked about how the children, was it brother and sister bear, were doing this project about the earth, and they had realized that people were dumping oil into the rivers and putting plastic into the lakes, and the papa bear was cutting down all the trees. And in it, he said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he took the kids outside and he said, look, there's a beautiful sunset. Everything is fine. And of course, then the bears learned that things weren't fine. And then they, came together and like, quote unquote, saved the world. Although the things they were saying back then, 30 years ago, are still the things that we're being told to see now, which blew my mind, because I was like, this is not working. Like this was maybe acceptable back then, but it's not anymore. But that said, I remember that part being striking of Papa Bear taking them outside and saying, look, there's a beautiful sunset. What are you talking about? Everything is, it's a wonderful place to be. And so I think about that a lot with nature, that like we are in a kind of a desperate place. There are less bugs and less biodiversity, and we have plastic everywhere, and we've got so used to plastic being all over the floor and trash everywhere, and we just kind of get used to that. But then I lean a lot on nature to be like, well, nature's seen some harsh winters and some harsh seasons of life, and it has continued to survive through it and continue to be beautiful through it. So, I find that, as you said, in community, but I think you and I both agree that just being outside in it, even if you can or can't see the harm that is happening, there is still beauty in every moment. Like I've often thought to myself, I'll always be able to look up during a sunset or a sunrise at the silhouette of a tree with that in the background, and how beautiful that is. That is always going to be there, even if it's not as often as I would like it or as it is right now. And so, yeah, let's speak to that piece of how nature itself helps you through, tough moments, or helps you to feel maybe hope, maybe whatever word you would like to represent what Ayana was talking about. How does nature itself provide that for you?
I love the Bernstein Bears book. You quoted too. We grew up with the Bernstein Bears as well. And something in the What If We Get It Right book, which regardless of what chapter you're in, my favorite is at the beginning of each chapter, it says like the 10 problems and the 10 possibilities.
Yes.
And so I think it's holding both. She's not only saying, let's only talk about the solutions and let's only talk about what's possible. She's saying, this is the truth. And she's very frank about,
the hard reads.
Hard reads. This is what is not only like potentially going to happen, but what is expected to happen if we continue burning oil and global temperatures to raise at this rate, at this trajectory. So I think it's important and necessary to hold both. And maybe that's the two truths part. This is the truth, and this is also the truth. But then the other thing that came to mind when you talk about seeing the silhouette of the sun of the tree, I remember, grief has taught me a lot. I remember like 2 weeks maybe after my dad passed, and like those were really, really dark days, and time is just like a weird, it was just a very, very heavy time. And I remember, I think like putting something in the car, walking outside and putting something in the car and looking up, and clouds were passing. And I was just like standing there long enough to watch clouds move. And I remember thinking, even on my darkest days, the world is still turning. And I think that's perhaps puts us in the place, like in our place of all of this too, is no amount of like human destruction or greed or evil or anything will like stop this beautiful thing from existing, Yes, it will cause extreme harm. And like you mentioned, it can cause like entire species to become extinct and like ecosystems to collapse, but it like cannot stop this beautiful thing from turning, And so I do that now too as a practice. When post-election or even like post-fires, the first days we could go outside when the smoke was gone, I guess after the rain came, and thinking like, wow, even on our darkest days, the earth is still turning. I'm like, isn't that a miracle? Isn't that magical?
Yeah. Yes, I know. I want to pull on that in a second, but where I often feel that feeling the most is often in California. I see this, but in other places too. When you see like a parking structure, and the ivy is covered it all over it. And I know like that's probably an invasive species in that area that we don't want there. But for some reason, seeing nature kind of overtake something that humans have built gives me so much inspiration, because I'm like, you know what? Even if we completely destroy ourselves, she's still here and she is going to find a way to survive. And so I often feel that in LA, because you do see a lot of, or in California, you see a lot of the parking structures where it's all up on the ceiling, on the inside, on, the middle layers. And I always love seeing it, even if it's not, it shouldn't be there. But that's one of those moments where I feel that a lot of just continuing to trust that, it is a miracle that we are even here and alive, and this is even the situation. So then with that, this is where sometimes I run into this kind of what I'm feeling today of like thinking, how does the rest of the world not see this? How do you not get this? How do you not, when I remember this vividly of being in San Diego last year, and with this team of people, they were talking about this event, professionals, and
ultimately what made people go was the sunset and the skyline and, sorry, not the skyline, the sunset and the backdrop of nature. And I remember thinking like, but why are we spending all of our energy on the other stuff if actually that is what makes us go, wow. And it's the same with when people talk about their vacations, going to the Grand Canyon. Wow. Going to some hot springs. Wow. And yet we go back home and it's like, that doesn't matter anymore. How do you not drive yourself crazy when you get it of like the just insane concept that we are on this perfect planet right now and that she even exists? When others seem to forget that, other than when they are in those jaw-dropping moments of a perfect sunset or a Grand Canyon or and you live on the beach, near the beach, so maybe that's part of it. But yeah, how do you reconcile with that?
I feel like, going back to this, like when did we start believing that we were separate? Obviously through colonization too, because every indigenous community believes that there is no separation between human species and nature. It is the same. And I was helping a friend. He runs a beautiful urban farm near like East LA. And I was out there last week shooting some stuff for him. And he has a sign on the front. You would love it. And it just says, "You are Earth." And he was getting into this is why we're here. It's not just about growing food or, growing plants and restoring the land. He even said, it's about removing the word nature from our lexicon and our language, because nature was a word that was created in English that by definition in the Oxford Dictionary says it's anything other than humans and man-made things. It's all life and all parts of Earth that are not man and man-made things. And so that by definition created the distinction that we are separate. And so we've been taught through colonization and white supremacy over centuries that we are therefore separate, because every indigenous culture doesn't believe that there's separation. Even like we've been working on the garden in our house and we hire amazing immigrant workers who are helping us with the land. And so I'm practicing my Spanish and speaking Spanish with them. And tierra is earth. It's the same word for soil. Tierra. It's the same. And I was like, wow, you don't even have a different word, because that's what that is. That is earth. There's not even a different word. And I think it's so beautiful in other cultures when you see that too. There is no separation. And so even like, yes, when you go on vacation or you watch the sunset, but my mom, for example, isn't necessarily an outdoorsy person, but is so connected to land because she gardens and she loves to cook. And so I'm like, every time you cut open a vegetable, that is like the miracle of Earth. You're like everything. Isn't that what always puts me in awe? Is you're like, every living thing has the desire to survive. Like everything, even every plant is like, I want to survive and then like essentially procreate. I like want this to be a regenerative cycle where then this continues. And every living thing on Earth has that, what do you say? I don't want to call it like desire, that purpose, that like purpose to survive and contribute to the greater system and like play a role. And so I think those moments of awe, from a sunset to like opening up a tomato, saying like, wow, look at this. Look at like the miracle that is life that we get to experience. And so I think the frustration of folks who like don't get that, it's also like, yeah, because we have been taught that. Like that is in our English language. We have been taught that. And it's also been a form of oppression for other communities too, to like remove access to green spaces, to remove education about these things, to remove access to produce, where you would like feel that connection. So you're like, oh yeah, I really understand how you would think that, because we have been taught that for so long,
That is so true. Yeah. And you mentioned about, the food, growing, your mom gardening. I really feel like it for me when I started growing our own food, that was another layer of respect and appreciation and understanding of, growing life. And as you said, that desire for it to continue and find a way to survive, even if, some adverse situation for it is not going on. In our garden, a lot of the rabbits somehow squeeze through these gaps that I cannot conceptualize how they fit through, but they do. And yet the plant keeps trying to find a way to grow, even as the rabbit continues to eat it down. But we've lost so much of that with, particularly, I live here in the Midwest, where a lot of people don't ever go to a farmer's market or don't ever grow anything on their own. And so you mentioned hyper-local earlier, trying to find a way to, if we're not going to grow our own food, to get connected to a farmer's market, get connected to some way to get those food items locally, to be able to see that and show your kids that, and be around it to continue building that respect and admiration, that awe, as you mentioned, for it. And yeah, that's just something I think about often in terms of like a frustration. But you're right that unless you have been told that or shown that of the beauty, the wonder in nature, like how are you to know? How are you to think about that? And so you often do on your social media these kind of reels where you will show yourself speaking to someone or to yourself, and then you show the kind of like, yeah, but what about this? What are some of the examples that come up to you when you think of that, of people listening right now, some of the opposition they might have in their head of wanting to take an action or wanting to change their lives? Are there some that you find come up over and over again in the different situations?
Well, as you're explaining that too, because I even like living in the Midwest and not having access, or folks not normalizing going to the farmer's market. Whereas in Southern California, we are like the fruit basket of the country, right?
Yeah.
And we can grow year round. And so much of our produce is local because it's grown here, So I'm almost thinking there's kind of like three, perhaps there's more, but what comes to mind right now, there's like three buckets of folks when you say like, how can I get you to care? Like, how can I get you to understand the miracle that this is? And one is perhaps like we have been taught this through colonization and white supremacy. We have been taught that there's a separation, and you didn't know that. And you have had your resources and your access limited as a form of oppression. And how can I then like be an ally and advocate for you to have more access? Because it's like, now you know that there's this miracle. How can I advocate that you can experience it more on a daily basis? Right? Boom. Secondly, perhaps, yes, you've been taught that there's separation. So you see humans as superior, but then I can recreate this connection for you. We can talk about this reconnection, and you can like start to find ways to reconnect and therefore like advocate for the natural world. Boom. And you get it. And then there's like the greedy suckers, who are like, you understand that this is a natural resource. You understand that this is causing degradation. You understand that this impacts water quality and air quality and communities of color. You understand that, know that. We had a beautiful event. Oh my gosh, Tina, yesterday. It's called Ciclavia. They shut down 4 miles of one of our main roads, Jefferson in LA, just for bikes and scooters and pedestrians and all. I saw unicycle and everyone, wagons and everything.
Every week?
No, it's a couple times a year. They shut down like different main roads, and it's just to like celebrate what could be. Right? Like this is what could be. And it's put on through the metro, which is our train or our metro bus and rail system. And I was cycling around. I'm like, look at this. This is like, Dutch people are probably like, yeah, duh.
Yeah.
But I'm like, wow, this is what these streets could look like. No cars, and they're safe, and you've got kids and old people and young people and dogs and everything. Like all of the restaurants were packed because the bikes were just pulling up, anyway. And so I think, we were talking about, sorry, I got excited. Talking about greed, talking about what's possible. Oh, and there at the cycling event, there was a booth of folks who ran an anti-oil drilling organization in LA, because we have a lot of drilling in LA, like urban drilling in LA. Yep. And they were posted up outside of an old drill site that took 50 years for them to close, but they finally started closing it in 2019. And now they're trying to raise or get grant money from the state to turn it into a community park, skate park, picnic benches, swing set, all of that. And there's another drilling site, probably like 2 miles from my house, 2.5 miles from my house, that they're trying to shut down because all of the research shows if you live within 1,500 feet of a drill site, your lung capacity is smaller. They're finding heavy metals in nails in your nail samplings, and it causes lung cancer and asthma. And they know this. And so I'm like, if you know this, decision makers, corporations, if you know this and you continue to do it anyway, then that is just like evil and greed, you know? And I don't know if I'm necessarily concerned about changing those folks' minds, you know? And I think if anything, the past 2 months or whatever, a couple of years has taught us like, it will never be corporations doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Like the only way to get them to react is through governance and regulation. They won't. Like there's no incentive. Like if you are in a capitalistic society, your bottom line is your returns to your shareholders. That's it.
So what would you say to someone listening? Like we've talked about, hyperlocal, building, doing things within your community. And, even as myself, someone in the Midwest, like I am very fortunate in my neighbors. Last night, actually, one of them texted and said, does anyone want any cake? I have some left over from a birthday. Like, sure. And she delivered it, slices to I think 3 different families. Same with like, do you have Thai chili sauce? Does anyone have sesame seeds? Like we very much have kind of that community piece going on. So we don't need all these things. My family ends up being my kids are wearing almost exclusively clothes from my neighbors' kids. Like, so I very much am fortunate for that there. But what would you say beyond connecting with your community are like maybe 3 things that someone listening can do to contribute in their own community if what you're saying there, like corporations are never going to do it on their own. And so it can feel like our individualistic or our individual actions don't matter, but they do matter when they come together. So if someone's going to build in their community beyond literally getting to know your community members, getting to know the people around you, as you mentioned, through your run group, through your neighbors, through your farmers markets, places you might go, what would you say would be some next steps after getting to know people?
I think it was Bill McKibben from, what's the org he runs? 350.org? Or what's he run?
I actually don't. I think it might be 350.
350 and then a third act, right? To get folks to divest their retirement. I think he said the number one things individuals can do is stop being an individual. I was like, oh, it's so good. Because we want to say like, what sustainable products can I buy? And like, what meals can I make? And how can I recycle? And how can I like lower my footprint? And I'm like, no, it's actually stop. There's still actions you take, but it's like you go to a repair cafe, with other people and you repair your stuff and you repair it with others, or you host a repair cafe, or you borrow something from a tool library. And it's funny, I'm seeing a lot now. I think a lot of people are talking about revolution. How do we like create resistance, and what does the revolution look like? And how do we stop leaning on convenience and and less consumption and more collaboration? And I'm like, these things are so simple when you think about it, but they are revolutionary because they're so I don't want to say popular, but like, we're like, wow, what a concept. We've been conditioned to think if you need something, you buy something.
Yeah.
Right? In this like capitalistic structure. But if you need something, you ask somebody, do you have this? Does anybody have an extra? Can I borrow it? And then if you have extra, you say, does anybody need this? And so these are revolutionary things. I saw a roundup post. I think it may have been from Remake Our World. Do you know them? They're like a sustainable fashion and like ethical fashion, worker rights activist organization. And they're saying these things are quite simple. Joining mutual aid organizations, like supporting food Do you guys have community fridges in St. Louis?
Or
like
I don't know if we
community?
do. Maybe.
They're like literal refrigerators that are plugged up, and they have like a pantry and a refrigerator. We have them all over LA. And if you need food, it's a place you can go and get food.
Well,
And they are like maintained and serviced by the community. And if you have extra food, you drop it off.
yeah.
Do you use Buy Nothing group to connect with your neighbors?
I am a big
Yes.
Buy Nothing. Yes. Yes.
Like what a there's nothing that makes me feel more tapped in than my Buy Nothing group.
Okay, but there's the one problem, which is, maybe yours isn't, but mine is only on Facebook. And that's the only thing that I just wish so badly that like it could detach from that, because
I heard there's an app.
There is. I can't seem to. I don't know if mine just doesn't exist on the app. I did download the app, but it's not on there. That's the one downside that I have and that's a big downside. But I do have mine. For me, it always ends up being a bit messy because I don't have Facebook on my phone, and so if the person I'm giving to or getting from tries to message me, I don't see it for like 6 hours.
I just give people my phone number. I'm like, this is me. I'm awful at checking Messenger or whatever is a messaging app. Just call me. Yeah.
Yes.
I do that too.
But yes, Buy Nothing groups for people listening. There's probably one in not even your city, your like subdivision. They are very local. You can find anything. You can do like in search of, if you're looking for something, you can, obviously put things on there that you are looking to pass on, that you maybe don't need or you have extra of. I love seeing when it's like, got all this extra, like I saw one this morning, it was like bananas and spinach, like bags and bags of people's spinach. And it was like, post a picture after you've come through so that we can keep showing how much is left. And I was just like, God, that's beautiful.
I have one. This is an idea. I have to do it because it's citrus season right now. This is my idea. Perhaps by telling you it, I have an element of accountability. But we have so many citrus trees in our neighborhood because they grow in people's yards. And it's very common in Southern California. Everyone has like lemon, orange, clementine, mandarin, lime, everything. And so I want to start like a crop share with just my neighbors with like 3 streets. And a lot of these folks have so much fruit on their trees, but aren't picking it and it's falling and rotting on the ground.
Yeah.
And so I want to offer, I'll come pick it. I even have a fruit picker.
Yeah.
I'll come pick it. I'll bring it home. I'll divvy it up into however many boxes there are of houses. So let's say I get 10 neighbors involved and I'll pack 10 houses or 10 boxes and we can all share the fruit. Yeah. Because if you have a lemon tree, there's only so many lemons you can eat.
Yeah.
But if you said, but if I give you my lemons and I get grapefruit and mandarins and oranges and limes in return, heck yes. And then anything surplus, we can, like I have a basket outside of our house and we put our extra limes out there.
Yeah, I've seen you doing that. I should do that with, last year our cucumbers and tomatoes were like insane off the charts. And so I would like almost every other day text my neighbors and be like, does anyone need a cucumber? Anyone at all? And they'd be like, no, I still have the other 5 you gave me. And I'm like, no, please, I can't eat any more cucumbers. So I've tickled them. I've done everything with them and they're coming up my ears. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
So, but I saw you putting the citrus fruit basket. And so I think maybe I can do that and put it outside and people walking by can grab one. So I'm not adding to food waste.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Lauren. Is there anything you would like to leave the listeners with just in terms of, like this is a tough time, especially we haven't even got into the national parks situation and how that could really get dire really, really quickly. But anything you'd like to leave people with just in terms of like, we've talked a lot about community, getting involved with people around you. Anything else you'd like to share?
I feel like these are the types of times that radicalize people to take action who maybe said prior, that's great. And Tina, I'm sure you've heard it. I love that for you. I'm so glad that you're doing that. We need people like you doing this work, right? But it can't be like a couple hundred, or let's even call it thousands of people doing this work. This has to be a mass mobilization of everyone finding the way that they can contribute in their own unique way. And that's a lot of the work Dr. Ayanna Johnson does with the climate Venn diagrams, is everyone has their own specific climate action. And so I know that this administration and the damage that they're causing and threatening to cause will wake so many people up to say,
Yes.
okay, I get it now. And I get that I have to take action. And so instead of trying to like force yourself into something that doesn't feel aligned, like take the time to ask yourself these questions. And it's a great exercise. The climate event exercise is a great exercise to do. What are the communities I'm already a part of, like running? What are the things I care about? What work needs to be done? And like, Tina, you're a perfect example. Like, how can I make marathons or races as closed loop and circular as possible and take this as an opportunity to educate the thousands of the people that are here about climate action as we're joined together, So I think I know everyone has their own unique way of contributing. And this is the type of stuff that just like wakes people up to tap into it.
For sure. Yes. And I think that's, as you said, where people are starting to think, okay, this weight on my heart, this like anxiety I feel, I need to do something about it. I need a purpose. I need something. And I'll put that Venn diagram in the show notes for people to go check out. And I've mentioned it many times, but if you haven't done it yet, it will help you to figure out where your role could be. So, Lauren, I appreciate you so much. You are such a like shining light that I look to and am inspired by. I hope everyone goes to find you online and feels the same way. Thank you for joining me today. And I look forward to standing out there with you and as we continue this work. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I have so much love for you, Tina. Thank you.
Before we go any further, I just want to give a quick shout out to the Running for Real team. Without them, I would not be able to do barely anything compared to what I'm able to do today. They are behind the scenes. They are there for me. I am just so appreciative of them. To Jeremy Nessel, our podcast editor, audio consultant, and someone who's been with me since the start. To Sally Pontarelli, our content and operations manager, who is there day to day doing all the things to help me be successful. To Kelsey Wang, our head of design, and Louise Murphy, our associate designer. And finally, to Sandy Gutierrez, our photographer and content strategist. I am appreciative of all of you and wouldn't be able to do what I do without you. I needed her words, and if you did, I hope you can return to that episode when you need it. It is okay to struggle. I was really struggling that day. And while I can't say Lauren fixed everything, I definitely felt better after that episode. You can find links to go find Lauren and all the things we talked about today in the show notes by going to runningforreal.com/episode 436. I also encourage you, if you'd missed it at the beginning, go sign up for the Running for Real newsletter. You will not want to miss what we have coming up. And thank you to our partners, to AG1 and to Precision. You can go to runningforreal.com/episode 436 to get special discounts to those two. And I will see you in 2 weeks. Thanks so much for listening.